All right, welcome everybody, y'all. I'm coming to you from a tiny house in Portland, Oregon today for the April office hours. It's April 7th, 2023, and I'm really excited because this is the first office hours of Q2, the second quarter, which means that we are moving on from the Q1 content, which was all about content marketing. And I think we all learned a lot. And if you want to put in the chat anything that stands out that really struck you about content marketing over the last quarter, please put that in the chat. We'd love to see that. But we are moving on to strategic networking. And I'm really excited about that because it's actually one of my favorite things to do. Yes, but it wasn't always that way. And I'll tell you about that. But first, we're going to do the poll that we always do at the beginning. And the question is, how busy are you with client work right now? So I'm going to launch the poll. Too busy, busy enough, slow, or no work at all? So take a moment while I let a few more people in and vote. All right, so those of you who are just joining us, we're doing our regular poll to see how busy people are. And Bonnie is ready to take those numbers. Excellent. All right, we're gonna, looks like almost everyone has voted. I'll just give you 10, 9. This is what my yoga teacher does. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. 5. No, I don't want to hold it anymore. Okay. So I'm going to end the poll. And I'm going to share the results. So what you see is that 5% are too busy. And that's compared to 3% last month. And 40% are busy enough, and that's compared to 43% last month. And 31% are slow, which compares to 30% last month. So looks like almost everything is about the same. No work at all, 24%. Last month it was 23%. So that's very interesting. I mean, you know, the thing about numbers that I've learned is that it's the trend that matters more than the actual numbers. So the trend is it's consistent. The trend is consistency, which is kind of interesting. All right. So if you have any thoughts about what you see there, what trend you see there, I'd be interested in hearing it in the chat. And the other thing is that, you know, we want to make it clear that there's no judgment per se about being slow, right? Some people are really happy to be slow. Some people are really unhappy to be too busy. So it really all depends on what you want and how you want to run your business, which is just the beautiful thing about being self-employed, right? Sometimes numbers help us freak out less. And actually, one thing I've realized and noticed a lot lately is there's a big difference between how we feel about how things are going and what the actual numbers are. And when you do your numbers at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year, you might see, oh, it felt like I was not so busy, but I'm actually doing better than last year. That happens a lot. So if that happens to you, I'd love to hear about that in the chat as well. All right, so as usual, I have way too much content and ideas to share. So we're going to wing it a little bit and do what makes sense. But as usual, in terms of big ideas, I want to start with a little philosophical perspective about networking. So we're talking all about strategic networking, and there'll be a lot of interaction in the chat as usual as well. First, I want to actually just show on the Google Doc where I'm sorry, not on the Google Doc, on the Simplest Marketing Plan, right? Because sometimes we get to this point in the year and maybe people can't figure out where they put that document and are they using it? So if you are using it still in April, I would love to see that in the chat as well. But here we are on tool number 2. This is page 8, and we're talking about strategic networking, which we're going to define and talk about the challenges and all of that. And so just to orient ourselves, but I kind of want to start with, it's not really a story. It's just a little reminiscing I've been doing about myself, because this is April, actually. I don't know the exact date. It was a Friday in April in 1988 when I was fired from my second job out of college. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that story again. And so it's 35 years. And I was just a totally different person at that point in my life. And even before that, I was reminiscing last night with some friends and thinking about how, as a child, I just was afraid of people. I was afraid. I wasn't an introvert. I wasn't shy. I was afraid. I'm not exactly sure what I was afraid of, truthfully, but I didn't really trust people very much. And so I was a listener and not a talker. And so I would just basically sit and listen while other people talked, which is actually a lot of what I do these days, but I also talk much more now. But I never knew how to jump into a conversation. I really never knew what to say. But again, as I said, things have changed, and I'm almost 62. My birthday's coming up, and we will be celebrating it one way or another. But I do think that, thanks to 35 years of being self-employed, I am a different person. And it's thanks to all the opportunities that I've had, that I've kind of provided for myself over the years in this laboratory that is my business and your business. So I hope you're using it as a laboratory. And I really feel like it has forced me to rise to the occasion and to behave differently, to literally become a different person. You really wouldn't recognize me. And I'm not here to say, if I can do it, you can, because that's not necessarily true. But I do think that it's possible if you're someone who is afraid or shy or introverted or whatever word you use, or not, right? The networking is a really important element in building a business. And I do think that's where it starts. And actually, often we've done a little research lately, and we learned, and I've noticed this, but I didn't have the numbers. We've learned that often when people start a new business, the first thing they do is go out networking, because it's the most accessible thing to do, except when you're locked down. But now that we have LinkedIn, it really is one of the easiest things to do. So I want to define networking first. Let's do that together. And I'd love to know, before I tell you what it is to me, what is networking to you? In the chat, please. And then Bonnie, my lovely assistant, will tell us what she sees. What the heck is networking? Because a lot of these, the language that we use, and especially even the 3 tools of the simplest marketing plan, people confuse them. Oh, that's networking. No, that's outreach. So I really want to know what it is to you.
It seems like most people are saying connecting, meeting new people. Those are the top, and building relationships.
Yeah. I love that the word connecting has come up, because that's really prompts me to show this. So some of you have, I hope, taken the networking survey that we sent out earlier in the week and the week before. And if you haven't, we'll share it later. But we have also been gathering that information, and I want to show you. We did a word cloud based on what people said their challenges to networking are. And I can't tell you how happy I was to see the word connections as the biggest word in that word cloud, because I just love connections and I love connecting. And I'll talk a little bit about that shortly too. But yes, I would say networking is connecting with people, building relationships. But I want you to, as I've said before, I'm going to try to get you to think a little differently and maybe even behave a little differently if possible. And maybe even today, you might try behaving a little differently when we do our networking breakouts. But to me, networking is about essentially making friends. We're making business friends. And I think if you can think about it that way, it gets a little less scary. And again, I don't want to assume that everyone is afraid of networking, but a lot of people are. And so if you can think about it as making friends, Gigi Rosenberg, one of my clients who some of you know, talked about it as going to a party. Think about it as going to a party, an online party or even an offline party, right? An in real life party. But it's also engaging with people, interacting with people. And this to me is the way you listen to the market, by engaging and interacting with people. So when I say listen to the market and people say, what do you mean? I mean networking, I mean engaging, I mean interacting. So that, and actually some of you may have seen my second quick LinkedIn tips newsletter that I sent out also this past week, was all about commenting. And commenting is the perfect example of online networking, right? To me, liking is not really networking, but engaging and commenting and sharing, that is definitely networking. Anything else before we move on to networking challenges, Bonnie?
No, I think you can go ahead.
All right. So I want to know what your networking challenges are, what your struggles are. I have a few ideas of what people struggle with. And again, if you don't struggle with this, tell us why. Tell us how you see it, how you think about it, that other people may adopt. Because, you know, everything is about like timing and hearing something at exactly the right moment that allows you to see it a little bit differently. And that could happen here today. Right, when you're ready, Bonnie, tell me what they're saying. What are the challenges?
So far, it's between time and shyness. Shyness is just a word that one person used, so that probably doesn't apply to everyone. But you know, the hesitance to do it for that reason. How salesy to be, maintaining and growing a connection. I think that's a really good point too, because it's not just reaching out.
Exactly.
Worry that they'll annoy people, feeling like an introvert, emotional overwhelm.
Right. So there are a lot of challenges, and I think we need to, one by one, you know, work at overcoming them. Some of the things I've heard recently is people saying, especially in an in-person environment with the people who you might see as your people, your market, but you serve them and you might feel like an interloper in their environment. I've heard a lot of people put that obstacle in front of them. Oh, I'm not one of them, so I shouldn't go there. But that's exactly why you should go there. And the other thing, this came up a couple of weeks ago with someone who I thought was doing a brilliant job working her network. That was the phrase I used. And when she saw it, I put it in a blog post. When she saw it, she said, oh, please take that out. Don't say I'm working my network. That sounds too opportunistic or cold and calculating. Instead, she wanted me to say connecting with my network. And I just found that fascinating because it is all about the language and the words we use when we think about what we're doing. So I'd be curious also in the chat if you have an opinion about this phrase that I think is awesome, working my network, if that feels like something you wouldn't want associated with you as well. Kevin, you would say what? You would say,
I think working my network is fine. I mean, I'm going out there and I'm working and I'm making connections with people within my network. I think it's self-explanatory.
right. Good. I say good as if bad is the other thing, but you know what I mean, right? Like No, let's work our networks. That's how we're going to help each other, actually. And that's probably a good segue to another point that I want to make about connections. I do love connections because really everything is connected. Everyone is connected. And I think LinkedIn proves that to us when we see how many degrees we're connected to other people by, from. And one thing that's really interesting when I help people really focus in on LinkedIn and look for their people on LinkedIn, like your eyes suddenly open up to, oh my God, we both know this person, or I didn't realize how many people were in my local area that I could actually work with, right? So that's one of the things I love about LinkedIn. It really unearths, if you will, the connections that are already there that we don't see. This reminds me again also of absence blindness, right? Not seeing what's not there. But if we can unearth what's there, then we can see it and then we can use it. And that applies to your network as well. And some of you may know that I just love learning about the brain and how we think. And one of the main things about the brain is that it's made up of connections, right? And the connections connecting are how we think. Don't quote me on that. But I really do just love even the phrase connecting the dots of your marketing, which is what the Simplest Marketing Plan is all about, kind of bringing all those things together. So I want to be painting a picture of what networking could be, especially strategic networking, for all those people who resist it, struggle with it, maybe even love it, right? Let's think about it differently. Let's think about it in a much more open way. All right, I'm going to break networking down next, but Bonnie, anything we need to know before I do that?
No, just that we have a lot of feelings about this stuff.
We have a lot of
showing up in the
feelings.
chat, which is good.
Excellent. All right. So as I've been thinking about strategic networking, I've broken it down for myself in ways that after I did that, I thought, oh, I'll bet not many people have thought about it this way. So I want to share that with you. But first, I just want to define strategic networking for those who aren't clear yet on how it's different from networking without being strategic. Because often, and especially at the beginning, if you're just starting out, you go out there and do networking, you probably go to a local chamber of commerce because that's the obvious place to network. But if those are not your people, or you know those are not your people, then that's probably not the best place to go, not very strategic. Nothing wrong with the Chamber of Commerce. It's the perfect place for some people who are focused on small business, local business, or just want to even practice networking. The local chamber is a good place to do that, but it may not be where you land, right? It may be where you start, but it may not be where you land. And so I've identified 3 different ways of thinking about networking. And we do want to do it strategically, otherwise it's kind of a waste of time. So I'll identify the 3 and then I'll just share a bit of detail about each one. So first, there's in real time versus virtual. That's one way to think about networking. Second, there's local versus global. So you could do it near where you are or far away. And third, there's networking with your peers versus networking with your target market, your prospects, the people who are your people, and you may not know who they are yet. So the first one for in real time or in person versus virtual, I mean, in the last 3 years, obviously LinkedIn has essentially become, for a lot of people, the place for online networking. And it could be all you need, right? A lot of people are just doing their networking on LinkedIn and it's fine. And I think that's fine. But I have to say, in person actually is best. It is the way you make the strongest impression on real people with your physical presence. And that's how they remember you. Because I don't know if anyone else has had this experience, but when you're networking online with people, it's all a little fuzzy, and like people have similar names, and then they've got those pictures, and wait, was that the person I had that conversation with, or was it another Brian or another Steve or another Bonnie, right? And so that doesn't happen for the most part when you meet someone in person. You really are able to make your strongest impression, and they're able to make their strongest impression. So highly recommended whenever possible to do in-person networking, as afraid or resistant as you might be. So that connects to number 2 then, which is local versus global. So if you can find places locally near you, a chapter of an association where your people gather, that is ideal. But even if you don't, some people say, oh no, but there's nothing near me, so I can't do in-person networking. I don't necessarily think so. I think that you may find an association that has an annual event that you travel to, maybe across the country, maybe to another state. I sometimes use the example of Conrad Winter, who is a copywriter, the most introverted copywriter I may have met. And he did what I told him to do years ago and went to the Transportation and Marketing Sales Association event. He had to travel to Florida, I think, for the first one. And now he's about to go to his 4th one, which is being held in Savannah, actually, in June. And he has since spoken at one of them. He's been on a committee, right? It's through this experience of interacting in person with those people that he's been able to become the go-to copywriter in that industry. So that's what's possible with in-person networking. And that's why I'm a huge fan of it. And then the third is an interesting one. Your peers versus the market, because I find that often, because you know where your peers are, if I say networking, you might think, oh, I'm going to go network with other designers, other copywriters, which is fine because they could be good referral sources for sure. But if you really want to do it for marketing purposes, then you should go where your people are, where your target market is. And you may feel like an interloper in doing that, but that's okay because they're not going to kick you out. I promise. They just want your money. So don't worry about that. All right. And one other thought about that, actually, before we're going to go into networking breakouts, is you may not know where your people go, and you may still not know exactly who your people are. But my suggestion is, if you have a client, all you need is one client, then ask them where they go to gather with their peers and their colleagues, because that could be a place that you also go to find people like them, especially if they're a client that you would like to clone and find more of. All right, I think I've talked enough now, Bonnie. Is there anything in the chat that we need before we talk about the networking that we're about to do?
Not really, but if you don't mind, I have something quick that might
Go
be on
ahead.
other people's
Yeah.
minds, perhaps. I'm definitely an introvert, and I also feel like I'm awkward and say the wrong thing, and just in person brings up that fear of being awkward and saying the wrong thing, which is why like LinkedIn is so attractive. Or are the other people here who feel just awkward in person and that's a fear? Couple of you people, maybe somebody doesn't want to raise their hand. I'm just curious what you'd say about that.
About being awkward and saying the wrong thing?
Feeling like you're awkward. Yeah.
Who cares? Right? I mean, I think, first of all, nobody's actually listening. Have you noticed that people are not listening? So the fact that you say not the perfect thing, right? Let's just say not the perfect thing. I really feel like, who cares? Even if somebody heard it, they're on to their own thing. They're focused on what they're saying. That's the imperfect thing as well. So I really, I really think, who cares? And feeling awkward, well, you'll get over that by practicing it.
Thanks. I love that.
All right. So you'll have plenty of time to talk about this, right? So the prompt is, let me just get my notes. Hold on. Someone is unmuted. I got to mute. All right. So now we're going to do that thing that some people love and some people don't love so much. But you know, if you've been here before and if you haven't, I'm telling you, this is a safe place. These are friends. These are your business friends. These are people who want you to succeed and want your help in their own success. So I'm going to give you the prompt, but I just want to say also, last time we did a poll about networking, and I asked who wants more time for networking in this environment, and more than half of you said you wanted 10 more minutes. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do 2 rounds again. This first round now is going to be 10-ish minutes. It might be a little bit longer. And then at the end, it'll be 12 o'clock Pacific, where I am in Portland. And we're going to do another 10 minutes. So those of you who can stay, raise your hand if you think you can stay for an extra 10 minutes of networking or want to. Okay, so a lot of people, that's excellent. So, and it'll be, 2 different prompts and different groups. I'll rearrange the groups. But just know that there will be another opportunity to do networking. All right. So the other thing I want to say before I give you the prompt also is going back to what I said about I want you to think differently and maybe even behave differently. And so what that could mean today is if you're one of those people who talks a lot, maybe hang back, talk not so much. If you're one of these people who doesn't talk all that much, maybe try to talk a little bit more or try to talk first. Right? I remember in some of the groups I used to be in, talking first was the worst thing. Like, who's going to talk first? Someone's got to talk first. But maybe try to be the one who talks first. All right. So just try something different. I dare you. All right. So as usual, you can talk about anything, right? And don't spend all the time introducing yourselves. Just give your elevator pitch, but don't spend all the time talking about you. Talk about what kind of networker are you, right? Are you the one who talks a lot? Are you the one who doesn't? Let's just talk about the process of networking, whether it's in real life or virtually, with your peers, with your market, or locally or globally. Any of that is up for grabs. All right, any questions, comments?
We're good to go in the chat.
All right.
This meeting is being recorded.
I'm muting everyone so we don't hear that. Welcome back, y'all. I hope that was fun. I see some people smiling. I see some people cringing. And we want to make one comment, and then we're going to open it up. If you want to share anything that you learned, or maybe you had a different experience, you could put that in the chat, of course, as well. Any aha moments. But Bonnie was saying something to me that I thought was really valuable. So Bonnie, would you repeat that?
Okay, so when I was mentioning feeling awkward talking to people, after that, I remembered what you taught us about content. When you feel awkward about creating content, instead of making it about yourself, you make it about your reader. And I was thinking, oh, duh, of course, when you go out to network with people, you make it about the other person and asking questions and figuring out who they are and what they do, rather than worrying about what you're going to say.
Questions are the answer to everything. I think I coined that phrase. I think I said that. And I'm just going to share my screen again to show you. Here we are still on page 8 for strategic networking. And the whole thing is about what do I say? And the answer is approach people with curiosity, ask questions, then listen. You're likely to hear content in their answers. Keep asking questions so you can learn about what they need, what they struggle with, what they're trying to accomplish. Those are the pain points which will feed your content. So you have a space here where you can make a list of the questions you have for your people. And sometimes when I ask people to make a list of questions, they panic and freeze. And then another way to think about it might be like, well, what do you authentically, literally, genuinely want to know about them? Those are your questions. And what did Jebra say that I think is also relevant? I remember. Jebra said, you don't have to find it unless you did. Jebra said, I'd like to learn how to work my network. I'm much better helping others than asking for help. And I appreciate that, Jebra, because that's what asking questions is all about. Like, what do you need? What can I help you with? So it's the same idea. And I do think that, you know, working your network could be just offering your help, because then people might reciprocate. They might offer help back to you, and they might ask you what you need. And then you don't have to be the first one to say that. Or you might feel like, because this is the thing, the law of reciprocity in the book Persuasion, I think it was called, no, Influence, I got to find it. Robert Cialdini, a very famous book on marketing, this law of reciprocity. When you give something to someone, they feel almost obligated to reciprocate. So give. That's why I say generosity is a marketing tool. See, it's all connected. That's what I love about this. Okay, I'll stop talking. Let's see. Raise your hand if you have a thought, something to share, an aha moment, and raise your electronic hand because I cannot see everyone on the screen. There's so many of y'all here today. Carrie, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a recent experience just a week ago that takes both of what you're saying, of like, it's these women that I know that are running this institute that I studied at a few years ago. And I'm looking at their LinkedIn and social media and their website, and it's a mess. And I want to help them. So I reached out and we had a video chat, and it kind of started out with, "Oh, Carrie, so what are you doing now?" And I said a little bit, but I flipped it around quickly and said, you know, I'd like to, I'll get more to that, but what I really wanted us to meet today because I wanted to hear, how are you? How's the institute? Are you getting your enrollment numbers that you're wanting? And that was the key, the conversation. And I jotted down, there's lots of pain points, there's lots of opportunity. And I said, you know, I've just been studying this, like these different areas, and I have a lot of information, and I believe in the work that you're doing. So I thought I could put together like a little packet of, you know, best practices, recommendations. And if you feel like it's helpful and relevant for you and you want to have a deeper partnership, then like we can go from there. And so the generosity piece. And then one of the women said, yeah, you know, like the social media stuff and LinkedIn, I hate it. I don't want to do it. And I don't have time to figure it out. Like, maybe you could just mentor me. Just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I was like, I like that idea. That's cool. Because I want to share this information. And then I just kind of said a couple other things like, what you do, people are craving it. People are craving connection and authenticity and guidance. And that's already what you're doing. So you can leverage it. So anyway, it was just a very cool, just those two techniques of flipping it around, asking them questions, and then the generosity piece. It was
I love
just
that. No, that's
great.
awesome, Carrie. And I just want to underscore what you said at the beginning to make sure people heard it in case you weren't listening, like the flipping it around. Okay, I'll tell you in a minute what I'm doing, but first I want to hear what you're doing so I can tell you something relevant about what I'm doing, right? That's the point there.
Totally.
And then the other thing is about listening to the market. And that's how Marketing Mentor started, by the way, y'all. Someone I knew in my network said, I can't afford to hire you to do the marketing for me, which was what I was doing for my clients at that time. But would you mentor me? I was like, good idea. And then 20 years later, here's what it is, right? So that could be like them asking, well, I want you to mentor me on the social media. Maybe that's the direction your business takes too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So very cool.
Thank you, Carrie. Marie, talk to us. And then Kevin.
Well, I just wanted to, on this topic of what kind of networker we are, you know, I just feel like, first of all, I've hardly been anywhere in person in 3 years, but in-person networking is very different than LinkedIn networking from my point of view. And one of the things I get hung up on, I mean, I don't feel comfortable when I'm in like an official networking situation. And that's kind of what LinkedIn is. And I get hung up on, like, if you're meeting someone, even if it's a work event, right, you have a natural flow of conversation. And you can talk about like the food you're eating or somebody's shoes or all this. And, you know, then like it goes back to work. Oh, so by the way, where do you work? On LinkedIn, it's so, you know, there are these discrete pieces. And I get to a point, like, of course, just like you taught in the 21-day course, you know, like if you, it's second nature. Like if you have something in common with someone, if you went to the same school, if you know you have kids the same age, anything can start a conversation. But then on LinkedIn, there's that huge gap of time and space. They say, yeah, my kid is 7, she goes to this school, and then it's like it's hard to every time pick it up and go to the next place.
Yeah.
And get to a place where you're talking about working. Like Carrie had that conversation with those people and it flowed. But on LinkedIn, I don't know where to go after, oh, so glad to connect with you. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I live there too. I'm in the same neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
do,
where to go
Marie.
from that? Like, by the way, you know,
All right,
I'm-
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to stop you
I'm
there.
sorry,
I
I'm
got
just,
your
I'm
point.
going
That's
TMI.
But I think it's an interesting question. And Bonnie, please make a note. We will address it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry I
Kevin,
went on so long.
that's okay. Kevin, talk to us.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Elise, you know, with the networking, it's kind of like yoga where they call it practice. We should cut ourselves some slack and not put so much pressure on it and just go and practice with these people. We don't know them. I think you've probably said it before, and maybe I'm getting there, but what is it called? Yeah, just like lower the pressure, lower the bar on yourself and just go into it. Like, I'm going to practice with these people and
An experiment.
yeah, and it's an experiment.
Exactly. And I just love the story I know about you, Kevin, just most recently when you went to that event, a trade association for your people, the second time. The first time, you're like, that yielded nothing. That wasn't worth my time. But 3 years have passed and you are different now. And you did a much better job at your networking 3 years later. So if anyone, has bad experiences from the past, just know that you may change and you may do it better. That is what's possible. That's my message. Antonio, talk to us.
I love that idea also, Elise. Thank you about the practice. The more that you practice, the better that, and the less awkward that you feel actually.
Yes, exactly.
Starting conversation, asking questions. I did a very quick sketch with the points that you were sharing just
Wow.
now, and I would love to
Go ahead, share your
it.
screen.
Can I do it?
Please share your
Okay.
screen.
So here it is.
Wow. Look at that.
This is so cool.
Awesome.
So it's about questions under the 3 core points in real life, local or global, and with peers, with prospects. So I think
Oh my God.
it's a nice way to remember. So I would love to send it to you, and maybe
I would
we can
love
share
that.
it with everybody.
Thank you, Antonio. That is
I love
awesome.
that the bear is a consultant in climate change. That's so cool.
Oh my God, you're the best. Y'all are the best, right? Are these amazing people or what, Bonnie? It's crazy. All right. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, as usual, we want your feedback on today's session. So Bonnie's going to put our feedback survey in there, and we hope you'll take it and just let us know what you think, because we're trying to make it better. And let's see, what else do I have here that I should not forget? I have a networking story, but I'm going to wait till next month to tell it. So stay tuned, just a little cliffhanger there. We're going to talk about networking stories next time. Bonnie, why don't you also tell my network and yours as well about your new podcast, which launched today?
Yay, thank you. Yeah, so excited. I have a brand new podcast called the Creative Confidence Project. And it's just right now, I did the 10-minute welcome episode, but I have a bunch of episodes waiting to come out. And it's just for anybody who, like me, has this big creative thing inside of you, but you have a lot of fear around that and you want to work on your confidence to show up as the biggest, brightest, most vibrant version of your creative self. So you can go to creativeconfidenceproject.com and listen to the first episode there.
Beautiful. Or find
Thanks,
her
Elise.
on LinkedIn. You're welcome.
Yes.
She did a little video about it this morning. All right. So we are going to do, for those who want to stay, another 10-minute, probably 2s and 3s, networking. But before we do that, I just want to wrap up for those of you who are not staying. One thing I like to do is put in the chat what you're going to do, maybe something new based on what you learned today in the chat. What will you do before we meet again next month, which is May 5th? Take a moment for that. And I saw Eileen's question. Let's not forget to answer that. She had a question about how often to network. I will answer that. And actually, before I do, if anyone has their own opinion about how often do you network? And again, it will depend on, are we talking about on LinkedIn or in real life, in person? I would say, I mean, this SMP says go to a monthly event. If you can, attend an event in real time monthly, if possible, if there is one. If you can't, then you have to compensate with online networking. And I like to say every day for LinkedIn, 5 minutes, which usually stretches a little bit into 10 or 15. But it's more about the cumulative aspect as opposed to the time spent. It's just doing a little bit every day. All right.
Group shot.
Yes, let's do a group shot, please. Can everybody wave?
Ah. Keep waving.
Keep waving. Bonnie is the photographer. Did you get it?
I think so.
All right, good.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, y'all. And okay, Leslie, do you have a question or you're waving? You're waving. Okay. Excellent. All right. So the next 2 dates, May, as I said, is May 5th, and June, it's usually the first Friday, but in June, because it's Bonnie's birthday on June 2nd, we're going to meet on June 9th because I need her here. So June 9th, it'll be the second Friday. It's on the calendar. I sent out a message earlier this week reminding everyone you should have those links, but I will remind you again. All right. So those of you who are still here, we're going to do another round of networking. So I'm going to turn off. If you don't want to do any more networking, get out now. I'm going to turn off the recording.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. So I'm impressed, first of all. No, first I'll apologize for some people were alone and didn't know what to do. And so I learned a good lesson. Thank you. And but I think this worked well. I'd be curious, if anyone has feedback, if you're going to put it in the chat or comment. We'll have a few minutes right now to chat. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, see, now I forgot it. Bonnie, do you remember what I was going to say?
I don't remember what you were
All
going to
right.
say.
That's all right. Okay, so then let's have, isn't that funny how that happens? Okay, it's gone, so it'll come back. Any aha moments there? Did it work? Besides the fact that pairs is probably not the best way to do it. People love the breakout groups. That's good to know. Excellent. What did you learn? actually, maybe Ryan and I were talking about something and he had an aha moment. Would you mind sharing that, Ryan?
Sure. Yeah. I was sharing with Ilise and the first group that I was chatting with about an aha moment of my wife and I were traveling, and we stayed at a hotel, and they happened to be having a Virginia travel and tourism conference. And the light bulb went off of, oh, these are the people I would love to connect with. Why am I not prepared? And it was just something where I had never even thought about there being a travel tourism conference, and how they would promote local areas and small businesses and wine country and just all that kind of stuff in Virginia.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge area, and would have been a great opportunity to connect with a lot of people. Other than I'm a graphic designer, other than just going to design conferences and things like that.
But I think the other point I would make there is also connected to the idea of listening to the market, which is that you don't have to come up with, I want to work with travel and tourism. You can go see what events are happening in your local area and say, is this a market I could work with? Is this a group I want to get to know? And just go and see, because that's how you will find out. Maybe that's the last point to make here, is that it is definitely this back and forth give and take, the finding your people and finding them, especially in person. And so it's a question of going out there, again, literally in person, to see, are these my people? As opposed to, I know who my people are, now I got to find them, right? Like it's kind of a back and forth between that. And so I want you to just experiment and use it as your laboratory. Yes, check Eventbrite. Exactly. Check whatever event directories there are near you and see, is that a market I would be interested in? And I did remember what I was going to say, which is what I started to say, which is that I'm really impressed that 47 of you are still here doing networking. So I thank you for staying. We're going to do this again. We'll do it better next time. And Bonnie, if you want to put the feedback survey link in there in case you haven't, just one more time, because we're gathering information. And we will see you again on May 5th. Leslie, you want to say something? I see your, no? You're saying goodbye? That's so funny. All right. So yes, we'll see you on May 5th, if not before, and then again on June 9th, not the 2nd. All right. Thanks for showing up, y'all. Bye.